Bonjour Booktube, bienvenue sur ma chaîne Bouquins et Books. No, this video will not be in French, this video will be in English. This is the Booktube Paris Tag. It was created by Jim at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff, and he very kindly tagged me in his original video, so I will leave a link to it in the description box below. And of course all the questions relate to Paris. Prompt number 1. What was the last book you read set in Paris? I still have not finished it. It's Cousin Pons by Balzac. I started this in March, and I cannot say that I read in it regularly. It's just once in a while I pick it up and I will read 50 pages. So now I'm almost at page 300. This is set in Paris. This is about a man who is not very rich. He's quite poor. He's a music teacher. But somehow he managed to amass a collection of objects, of porcelain and paintings and sculptures and little knickknacks like that are worth quite a lot. And people around him realize that this man, who appears very poor, is in fact quite rich and probably richer than he knows. And the problem is, well, the problem is for me, because it's something I don't like. It's that these people now are trying to exploit the poor man. They're trying to trick him out of his collection. And I don't like that. I don't like it when weaker people are being exploited by stronger people. So that's a bit the reason why I'm stuck in the middle. It's not so much that it's not interesting, it's that I don't want to read it. But I will. I do want to read it. I want to know how it ends. So I will find the courage and the strength to go through it. So this is the latest book that I read set in Paris. Oh, question number 2. I will leave that one for the end. This is what words can't be translated into English, and I made a list. And if you don't know, if you're new to my channel, I am a translator. I translate from English into French, and the question of languages fascinates me. And I came up with a bunch of words that exist in French and don't exist in English. And I could end up rambling a little bit, so I will keep it for the end. Question number 3. Do you have a favorite book in translation? Not really. I have favorite authors in translation, but I cannot say that I have necessarily a favorite book. For example, from the Russian, I love Dostoevsky, who wrote in Russian, and I read not all, but many of his books in French. Translated from the Spanish, I read quite a bit of Mario Vargas Llosa and quite a bit of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, though it's been a while since I read him, and I like them both. From Italian, I recently discovered Grazia Deledda, and she is an author who writes about Sardinia, and I read 3 of her books, and they're all very good. So this is another author in translation that I like a lot. So I like authors in translation, but I don't necessarily have a favorite book. Question number 3. No, that was question number 3. Question number 4. Have you read books in other languages? Well, I read books in French and in English, as you probably know. And I have a basis. I have some basic Spanish. So I took 3 years of Spanish in high school, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I had quite a good passive understanding of Spanish. I've never used it. I've never spoke 3 words of Spanish in my life, but I think I had quite a good passive understanding of it. However, I have not used it since. So this book is bilingual. You have the original Spanish on one side and the French translation on the other side. And what I did with this book is that I read the French first, and then I would look at the Spanish. And I could understand the Spanish after having read the French. Had I read just the Spanish, I would not have understood, because it would have been too complicated. I don't remember my verbs in Spanish, and too many words in there that I probably had never read before. However, I would be able to read a newspaper article in Spanish, and I would understand most of it. Perhaps some detail would escape me, but I would understand most of it. So that's about my level in Spanish. And I don't read in other languages. I know the Russian, the Cyrillic letters, so the basic alphabet of Russian, but that doesn't mean that I can read anything that I will understand. So I don't consider myself as being able to read in Russian. Question number 5. Jules Verne studied at law school in Paris. Do you have a favorite book by Jules Verne? I've read only one of his books. I've read only The Mysterious Island, that I read for March of the Mammoth last year in 2021. I quite liked it. It was dated a bit in the sense that it was about 4 or 5 men who end up on a desert island in the Pacific. but not the one with coconuts. An island more like in New Zealand perhaps, but much smaller, but with the type of climate you may have in New Zealand. And what they did was to try to tame nature, to mold nature to their needs. They empty lakes, they are trying to exterminate certain species. They are really using nature for their purposes. So that is very 19th century. Nowadays, it feels a bit odd that they are trying so hard to make nature like a city. And yes, that it's nature that must adapt to men's presence and not the men who must adapt to nature. So that is a bit odd. But I do want to read some other Jules Verne. I think I would like to read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I think I would like to read Around the World in 80 Days. There was a cartoon when I was a kid that I watched, and I think I would like to read the original. Question number 6. Do you have a favorite movie set in Paris? Jim stole my answer. It is Le Fabuleux Destin d'Amélie Poulain. This is just a lovely, lovely film. And the images of Paris are gorgeous. It is set in the very picturesque neighborhood of Montmartre. And it's lovely. It's a feel-good movie. It's just fun. Question number 7. Typical Jim question. Do you have a favorite French car? I don't pay much attention to cars. However, of all the French cars ever produced, there is one that I could identify, and that would be the Renault 5, so the Renault 5. When I was young, this was the one and only French car on the road because it's the one and only French car that was tough enough for Montreal winters. Any other would simply not survive the winter. So the Renault 5 was the only one that sold enough that it would remain on sale for quite a bit in Canada. And now I don't know if the model does not exist anymore or simply they've stopped selling it. I think there are no Renaults in Canada anymore. I don't think there are. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't pay much attention to cars. But anyway, the Renault 5, the Renault 5 of the 1980s, I would spot it among a whole bunch of cars. That one I do recognize. So I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's the only one I can recognize. Question number 8. Have you been to Paris? When was the last time you visited Paris? I have been to Paris. I've been to Paris 3 or 4 times. I don't remember. I would need to count. But it's just such a lovely city. It's a wonderful city to just enjoy. You just stroll and then you stop at a cafe, and I would buy a whole bunch of newspapers and I would read the newspapers and eat a croissant, and yeah, that was Paris for me. I'm sure it's not Paris for people who live there, but for tourists, it's just a lovely, lovely place. And the last time I went there, I think was in 2014 or 15. I don't remember exactly. So it's been a good 7 or 8 years. Question number 9. Do you have a favorite French painter or a painting set in Paris? Well, I think I do. One painter that I like a lot is Claude Gelée dit Le Lorrain. So in English, I think he's known only as Claude. And so this is a painting this is my college literature book. So this is how we learned literature in college, and it was full of paintings, and this is one. In fact, it was brought to my attention by my brother, who had the same book. Well, in fact, it's my brother's book, so this one is on loan. I have to give it back to him. But this painting is just, I think it's just gorgeous. And what I like about this artist is his ability to paint the light. So there's I don't know if it's a sunset or sunrise, but the beautiful light of this painting. And this one is in the National Gallery in London. And I did see the original, and it's just gorgeous. It's just wonderful. So I really like this painter. And of course I like the Impressionists, because who doesn't like a good Monet or a good Renoir? They are very agreeable to the eye. So I do like them too. Question number 10. Do you have a favorite French writer? Yes, I do. I have a whole bunch of them. I do love French writers, but my favorite would be Zola, Émile Zola. I think he writes good characters and good stories, and the language is solid. He's not trying to do too much with the language. He's not he's not stumbling on the flowers on the carpet. It's an expression we have in Canada. I don't know if it exists in France, but it's s'enfarger dans les fleurs du tapis. So basically, he's not tripping over the flowers printed on the carpet. So he's not trying to make things overly pretty. It's solid, it's to the point, it's well written, and good characters, good plots, and I really like Zola. So he would be my favorite writer. And that brings us back to question number 2, which is about words that are not translatable in English. And I made a list. There it is. That's my little list. So words that are not translatable in English. There are words that do not exist in English. Yeah, I should probably define first what is untranslatable. It's not so much that they are untranslatable, everything is translatable. It's that they do not have direct equivalent. The way English and French evoluted, the way they, yes, to evolute, that's a verb. See, that's the thing. I think about languages and suddenly I don't know how to speak anymore. So the way English and French were developed, they were so linked together that many words in French and English have direct equivalents. For example, you think cat in French, it's chat. You think dog in English, it's chien in French. And many words are identical. Table, for example, kitchen table. In French, the word for table is spelled T-A-B-L-E. You recognize that? Yes, it's the same word. So most words in French tend to have a direct equivalent in English. The opposite is not quite true. There are more words that exist in English that do not have a direct equivalent in French. And the reason is that English has sources from a lot of words taken from the Latin via French. So these, of course, have a direct equivalent. But also many words are from Germanic languages or from the Viking or the Norse or Old English or perhaps even Celtic or some things like that. So all of these words don't necessarily have an equivalent in French. So yeah, anyway, there are still a whole bunch of words that exist in French and do not exist in English. So I will start with some animals. And it's not because the animals don't exist in English. It's because English has a single word for what in French are two animals. Owls. There are two types of owls in French. In French, it's either hibou or chouette. And the only difference is how they look. The hibou will have the little feathers like this. They will have the aigrettes, and the chouette will not have these little feathers. So yeah, two different animals in French, but just one in English. Another one is seal. You have seals that live in the cold waters in the Arctic mainly, and you have seals that live in the southern seas, in the Pacific mainly. And the ones that live in the north, they don't have any ears. Well, they do have, but they are not visible. They are sort of inside. They just have holes behind on either side of their heads. And the other ones, the ones that live in the south, they have visible ears and they have longer flaps. So these ones that live in the south are otari in French, and the one that lives in the north, or I'm sorry to say that, but that is the way it is pronounced, they are phoque. P-H-O-Q-U-E. So they are phoque. That is how you pronounce the word. So these are two animals that exist in English, but there's just one word for these two different animals. Words that actually don't exist in English, notions that don't exist in English. These are a bit harder to translate and to explain. One that I got from Jim, it is terroir. T-E-R-R-O-I-R. So this comes from the word terre, from land, which means land. And it means the countryside, but the countryside that is the land that is exploited for agricultural purposes. So land that is cultivated for food products basically. And the products that you get from these lands are called produits du terroir. These are typical products, products that are characteristic of a region. For example, the typical produit du terroir of Canada or French Canada would be maple syrup, because it's something that is deeply linked to the land of Canada. In southern France, you would have the famous truffles of Périgord. That is a produit du terroir. It means it's a mix of artisan product, local product, typical product. All of that is the terroir. It's very difficult to translate. Another one that is not so difficult to translate, but it's untranslatable because it regroups 2 or 3 different notions in English. It is aménagement. So that would be used in the, there are 2 ways of understanding the word. It could be the interior design of a room, so that's plain enough. That's another thing. But when you talk about aménagement at an urban level, at the city level. So it includes what in English would be urban planning, urban development, and the fact that people are living in your urban development. So it's all of that is aménagement. It sort of groups all of these things together, everything that goes into molding a place to make it suitable to live in it, or to make it suitable for its purposes. So all of that is aménagement. So that's a very tricky notion to translate. One that I thought of when I was listening to the radio, and I will start by apologizing to all the francophones that are listening to my channel and know that song. I will name the title, and you will have the earworm in your head. It's going to be stuck. And I'm going to leave a link in the description box in case those of you who do not know the song are curious about it. And that song is C'est bon pour le moral by La Compagnie Créole. So the title, C'est bon pour le moral, it's good for the, and that is the word that is untranslatable, M-O-R-A-L. If you go to the dictionary, there are a bunch of translations for it. There are different expressions in which the word is used, and each expression ends up being translated in a different way in English. For example, you can have le moral dans les talons. So you have the moral in the heels. That means you feel down in the dumps. You're really not doing well morally. Mentally, you're not doing very well. Or at the opposite, if your moral is very high, then you are in high spirits. It's a bit how you feel. But all the equivalents I found in English, the other equivalents could be mojo, or in the case of troops, morale. But all of these words only talk about the end result. It's only about how you grade your spirits. Is it high? Is it low? It's the result. In French, the morale is not just the result. It's also the mental strength or the moral strength that will pull you through hard times. For example, suppose you're talking to someone about a common friend, and that common friend, he lost his job, his dog died, and his wife left him. So he's not doing well. And you're talking to your friend about this third person, and you ask, oh, how's he doing? And your friend tells you, oh, il garde le moral. So he keeps the moral. It doesn't mean he's doing well. He may be very, very sad. It just means that he's not broken. Your friend still has the strength to go through the hard times. He will muddle through. So it's this aptitude of being able to go through tough times. Moral. So it's very hard to translate. And I apologize for the earworm. Another word, that is so suitable for Paris. It is flâner. That is a verb, and that means to stroll, but to without a purpose, just to walk around and look at things, look at the shops, or not going anywhere. You don't have a particular destination, and you take your time and you waste time. It's a bit of a time-wasting activity. But if you're a tourist in Paris, you have to do that. You have to flâner in Paris. It's mandatory. You have to do that. So you just walk around, basically, and you enjoy it. That's the thing. It has to be enjoyable. So it's not just, it's a stroll, I guess. But the stroll, in my mind, has a bit of a purpose. The stroll is its own purpose, but flâner, the point is not to go flâner. The point is just you're wasting time. You're hanging about. You're just walking around. You're just, it's a very agreeable activity to do in Paris. Flâner. An adjective, frileux. That means that is the propensity for somebody to be cold. These little ladies who are cold all the time, always like 2 or 3 cardigans, and because they are always freezing, that person is frileuse. So that is in the feminine. In the masculine, it's frileux. And it's just a propensity to feel cold. That does not really exist in English. And another one is s'endormir. So I will write it in editing. I will write it on the screen. So you may recognize the word dormir in there. That means to sleep. So that is the last part of the word. But the beginning, the first en, that means into. So that is falling asleep, getting into sleep. And the S apostrophe, it means it's a reflexive verb. So it means that you are doing that to yourself. So it's the act of putting yourself to sleep, of falling, of making yourself go sleeping. It's it's before you are asleep, it's falling asleep. It's literally that little period of, that little action of making yourself go to sleep. S'endormir. Yeah, it's quite useful. And in fact, what is probably the most difficult to translate from the French into English is all these reflexive verbs, like this S apostrophe, or sometimes a SE, depending on whether the verb starts with a vowel or with a consonant. These are very difficult to translate in English because they are used everywhere in French, and that structure does not exist in English. So translators that are translating these words find their way. Everything is translatable. Everything is translatable. But you cannot just blindly follow the structure. You have to find another solution because these little reflexive verbs don't exist in English. So this structure, this particular syntax does not exist in English. And yeah, so these are this is my list of words that exist in French and don't exist in English. But I was speaking about reflexive verbs, and I was thinking of a type of verb in Russian. Well, it's not just a type of verb. The way verbs are classified in Russian. I don't speak Russian. I don't read Russian, but I did study a little bit. I went through a method book, and I did go to Moscow and St. Petersburg for a month to study the language a little bit. So I have a few notions of Russian. And the way they classify verbs is completely different than English. There is perfective and imperfective verbs. It depends on whether the action is done or not done, is ongoing or in the future, or has been realized and is in the past. So this is a completely different way of thinking about verbs, of categorizing reality, of categorizing action. And I think that is fascinating. So anyway, I love books about languages. So I will stop rambling here. And I didn't tag anyone. So I'm going to tag people. I'm going to tag Marilyn Maya Mendoza because she was studying French. She wanted to go to Paris. And I'm going to tag Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading because she just loves Paris. And of course, this is just an invitation, no obligation, of course. And yeah, that is it. That is it. I will stop rambling. So thank you everyone for watching. So if you know of any words that do not exist in English, that are difficult to translate in English, just let me know in the comments. I'm always curious about these things. And I will see you in the next video. À la prochaine!